Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Wolfman Legend audio podcast with Frank Walls and J Rock.
What up, people? Are you guys ready to deep down into the unknown?
So, Frank, werewolves. Werewolves like and subscribe to distorted realities. They even howl for us. But more importantly, they participate. So, for all you werewolf lovers out there, you can join in on the fun and join the chat and ask questions at 904-803-7327. Again, 904-803-7327. So
Sorry to interrupt you. We already got somebody in the chat.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Who's on the chat?
We got Daniel Martinez. He says, "Will you guys ever do a Skinwalker Wendigo segment?"
I'll tell you what. We will, but part of the werewolf lore that we're going to talk about covers some of that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you stick around, we'll definitely answer some of those questions.
Yeah. And we
Yes.
also talk a little bit about in one of our past episode about the Skinwalker Ranch too.
That's right. We did. I think it was the very first episode, actually.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So if you go to youtube.com, not right now, but when you get a chance, we'll cover it. We cover it very small. I think it was our pilot episode. He was trying to
Yeah.
get our bearings in and figure out how we're going to do this. But definitely something that we do plan on
Mhm.
discussing. So let's talk werewolves. So I think werewolves are awesome,
Yeah, they are.
but they're very like all over the place when it comes to their history, right? After doing some research, I found myself a little bit overwhelmed because there's so many differences with the information that's supplied. Every culture, every civilization in the past and even present has a different story about its origin. So I'm gonna just try to present the facts. And I guess because our moniker is discuss the unknown, discover your truth, you can accept whatever that truth is for you. But the oldest recount of a werewolf,
The oldest one?
the oldest, comes from the Epic of Gilgamesh,
Oh wow.
2100 BC.
That's the. Isn't that the creature that they sent to fight with him?
Yes, that is correct.
Gotcha.
So why don't you look it up and see so we can get more details regarding that specific piece. But so you have that in 2100 BC. In the Bible, Nebuchadnezzar II is considered to be the first ever and probably only werewolf in biblical text.
Nebuchadnezzar?
Nebuchadnezzar II, not the first. Right? And it is the most powerful werewolf on earth. Right? Only behind Lycaon, which is funny because werewolves, right, are another term for that, right? It's called lycanthropy, right? Which I'll get into more. It's actually from the word lyca, right? As in lycanthrope, right? So a lot of these things segue to different time periods. The most common, right, is the medieval period, which is and I'll get you the information right now. Where are you? Sorry, I have a whole bunch of notes in front of me. So in the medieval times, European period 1150 to 1228, that was a very common thing, but it was associated with witch trials, right? So there was this big pandemic. I'm gonna call it a pandemic of people being declared witches, right? And in doing so, these individuals ended up pretty much being persecuted and tried, right? through various, means, and a lot of people were unalived because of that. Um, you also have the Celtics, and I'll give you more detail on that now.
Going back to Nebuchadnezzar,
Go ahead.
that was the guy that he was cursed by God and turned into a beast. So he was like more than 6 or 10 years just acting like a beast, eating grass. Just it was pretty much like a beast. The way they describe him, like kind of
Right.
like a werewolf.
Right. So a lot of people, what they don't understand is that the werewolf, right? The original term wolf is Scottish.
Mm.
For so it was spelled as this: WULF, wolf,
Mm.
right? And were was actually weir, WEER,
Okay.
werewolf,
Werewolf.
which is a humanoid wolf to transform, right? The Celtics actually recorded the medieval Irish, English, and Norse resources, right? All of that, all those sources, they recorded this to be more of an ancient race of warriors that would wear wolf skin and fight. So they
Gotcha.
weren't necessarily werewolves; they were called wolves, right? Or werewolves because of I guess they're what they represented and more.
They were wearing like a
They
wolf
hunted
head
in packs, yeah.
Okay.
And it's very it's very prominent also in Native American
Culture.
mythos in the culture, right? So
Mhm.
so you have like chiefs that have like a wolf's mane or a wolf's head, and they, it's part of the animal spirit
Yeah.
thing that they got going on. So the Scottish have the wolver on Shetland, right? And was said to have the body of a man and the head of the wolf. He's usually seen sitting on a rock fishing, and would then leave a gift of fish to those people on the windowsills.
You don't have a Halloween custom of a werewolf?
I actually do.
Yeah, I do.
I actually do. So a lot of history behind wolves. The origin is not pinpointed, right? To a specific place. It's not like when we did the Jersey Devil, right? We already
Mhm.
know that its mother leads
Yeah.
and things like that. It's not specific, but what I did find is that this legend is in just about every single subset.
Every culture.
Yeah, and it's super powerful, right? Like, because that means that there has to be an origin that we can like pinpoint it to. You also have like books, right? Outside of ancient texts, you have Grimm's fairy tales, right?
Yeah. They're really good.
And those fairy tales originally had the werewolf
the
listed
story.
as part of the story. So there are differences, right? So what is a werewolf? Basically, it's a humanoid being that can shapeshift into a wolf. Now, there's different variants of this, right? I just learned this crap. Like, it's crazy, bro. I was so overwhelmed because I'm like, wait, so what is lycanthropy and what is this, right? So let's start off with the forms, right? So the first, so there's 3 different forms.
Different forms of
Yeah,
a werewolf.
werewolf. So the first one is called Hamid, the human, right? Then there's Lupus, the wolf, and then there's Krinos, the werewolf. Now, lycanthropy, right, is similar but not the same as the werewolf. So let
Okay.
me read this out to you. The lycanthrope is identical in the fact that it possesses a wolf and human form that appears nearly the same as a normal human or wolf. The hybrid form, a lycanthrope, lycan for short, is largely the same as a werewolf, except it tends to be a bit more muscular than the werewolf, but they're not necessarily stronger physically.
Wow.
So I guess it's almost like a subset or a different species altogether, right? And then you come to find out that that word lycanthrope is the common name used, or the proper name used to describe werewolf,
Werewolf, yeah.
transformations. You know, but it gets even deeper, and I'm trying to look for it because inside of the lichen / werewolf, there are actually ranks, right? So let me just look at that. Give me 1 second.
While you look into that, I'm gonna add a little bit. You were saying about the Gilgamesh.
Yes, please.
It was Enkidu, one of the Sumerian.
Enkidu.
Enkidu, yeah, was a legendary figure in ancient Mesopotamian mythology, wartime comrade and friend of Gilgamesh, King Uruk. Their exploits were composed in Sumerian poems and in the Akkadian epic of Gilgamesh, written during the second millennium before Christ. He is the oldest literary representation of the wild man, a current motif in artistic representation in Mesopotamia and ancient Near East literature. The apparition of Enkidu as a primitive man seems to be a potential parallel of the old Babylonian version. Wow,
Interesting.
very interesting.
So that's how far back it goes. And I mean, so for those of you who don't know, the Epic of Gilgamesh is part of ancient Sumerian text. It's considered the origin story of us human beings. These Sumers were from a different planet. They came here. They created what we know today as a human race, and they're like the original gods, basically. They were giants.
They were descended from the Anunnakis too, right?
Yeah, so that's the thing. I'm a little bit confused on that.
Yeah.
I don't want to segue too much onto it because I just think it's just to give them context where the Epic of Gilgamesh comes from. But
also Gilgamesh has a lot of I like to Nabucodonosor. Nabucodonosor. Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah.
In
So-
Spanish, it's Nabucodonosor.
right. So Nebuchadnezzar the second.
Yeah.
All right.
So they kind of have like the way they're described. I think Nebuchadnezzar was like a mighty hunter.
right.
It was like a big guy, whatever, and Gilgamesh also described like a big guy that, you know.
So yeah, I mean,
powerful.
he was powerful
Mhm.
based on the text.
Yeah.
So let's go back into the pack hierarchy because I think this is super important in the werewolf ranks, right? Here you have, and again, I'm just going by what the rankings are, and I'm just going through the list. It's the alpha, which is the leader of the pack. So wolves hunt in packs. So the way the legend is, and this is almost the same throughout all legends, is if a werewolf hurts you and scars you, you become part of its pack if you survive. And in 30 days, when you get the first full moon, you transform into a werewolf, right? But you are part of that pack. And then the pack leader is called the alpha.
The alpha.
So he's the strongest and the most important. He has the highest title the wolf can have. They're born. Some of them are born into the title. So if you're an alpha and you're born, you're the successor.
Gotcha.
Right? It's almost like the Lion King, right? Like Simba,
Mufasa.
yeah. So it's kind of that. And then you have Beta, which is the second in command. Typically in wolf culture, the second in command is the wife, right?
Gotcha.
In the werewolf lore, they're not, right? And then you have gammas, which is the third strongest in that group. And then your alpha females are called lunas,
Oh, okay.
right? And I'm not gonna use werewolf because there actually is such a term as werewoman, right? That's what they're called. And she's pretty much the figurehead of the pack, and she controls the pack's structure.
You know that talking about the animal, the wolf, they're so smart that when they travel in packs, they put the oldest ones and the one that has like problems. They put them in the front. That way they can keep the pace.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because if they put them if they put them behind the pack, when they can get left behind. So
Right.
for that not to happen, they put them in the front when they're like walking and stuff. That's very very smart, you know.
I mean, they're very intelligent
Mhm.
beings. Um, it's so much so that I find them more intimidating than lions and
Oh, yeah.
tigers, because they're intelligent. They're not necessarily primal,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like a lion is gonna do what it does because it's
Mm-hmm.
it's a lion. It just eats and it governs its pack the way it does. But most of the time, it doesn't do any work. It's the
It's the
females,
female, yeah.
right? Versus wolves, they have to work together.
Yeah.
They work. They know their roles. There's a lead. Each individual has a place,
Mhm.
and the same thing can be said about werewolves, right?
Exactly.
Then you have the pack warrior, right? Well, the pack warriors are just fighters of the pack,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you have omega, which are just servants. All right. It gets more complicated than that because there are other rankings that are not spoken of because they're considered a little bit more complicated. Let me just get that information and get it in front. So inside of these rankings, right? You have, like, for example, pack ranks. So even inside of the ranks, these werewolves have other rankings. They're called epsilon, zeta, iota, kappa, and omega.
Wow.
Right? Omega being the lowest form.
That sounds like a fraternity.
Yeah, and it gets crazier, right? Because they actually have, and this I found interesting. Um, Even amongst ranks of werewolves, right? Um, there's something that they call an inner council. That's when you see packs of wolves, and I'm using real wolves, not werewolves. Real wolves, they fight for supremacy to see
Gotcha.
who's the true alpha. Well, it's the same thing. And what happens is that if one alpha defeats the other, they rule the whole pack.
Mm-hmm.
And that second one becomes second in command.
Gotcha.
So it kind of shifts everybody down
Mm-hmm.
from the pack.
Like the ranks.
The rankings go down.
Hey, we have a comment from Kid Dan in the chat. Kid Dan, please be advised that you're not gonna see us, sir, because this is only an audio.
Yeah, but you can call in at 904-803-7327.
You're welcome to call.
And if you call in, we'll throw in a free shirt
Yeah,
if you have questions.
please give us a call. We already did the podcast. The podcast was at 5, and that one you can see us, but here it's only an audio.
So, yeah, there's a lot to take in. There's a lot to take in terms of information regarding werewolves, right? So we went over some of the historical pieces, which is kind of like open-ended, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we have some biblical, some older stories that fall into ancient text, and then we have structure, right?
Gotcha.
So I need to know, like, I started thinking, then how does this translate to what we know today as movies, right? My favorite movie was The Wolfman with Lon Chaney, right? So the way it works in the story is that he is cursed into becoming a werewolf, right? That is the social norm, accepted norm for werewolfism. I'm gonna call it that. It is the social norm, and basically he is cursed for in every full moon to become and transform into a werewolf.
Gotcha.
And at that point, he loses his train of thought, any kind of cognitive ability, and he becomes a primal species, hunting and pretty much unaliving whoever it sees. So that was the original Wolfman, but then it kind of segued into other movies where it talks about how in other places they become werewolves, right? Like I don't know if you remember American Werewolf in London.
Yeah. Oh, what was that movie that was with that was Jack Nicholson? He had one, right? He was a wolf,
Yeah, that's like a reimagining of this. It's called Wolf.
right? It was
Yeah.
with Jack Nicholson, right?
And I think what's his name? Benicio del Toro also did the Wolfman remake.
Yeah.
So
He looks like a wolf.
I mean, yeah, yeah. Um, so there is a lot of werewolf.
Werewolf in Paris.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them.
Give me one second. I'm just trying to get the. So then there's also hybrids, right? There's like a. I don't know if you ever heard of Van Helsing.
Yeah, of course.
So
yeah.
so Van Helsing is like the famous vampire.
And werewolf hunter.
No, vampire hunter.
No werewolf.
No, so according to the lore, he is a descendant of a lichen family.
Oh, okay.
So it almost ties into this idea that only an opposite species can kill
another one.
Yeah. So, but the whole Helsing family kind of took over that spectrum and kind of did away with the whole thing. I used to love watching like the Hammer horror films. Right? They used to talk about this stuff.
You know which movie I really like? Remember the Underworld?
Yeah.
Those were good ones. Those were really good.
Right. So that goes into the idea of vampire wolf hybrids.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But in order to based on movies like that, the lineage had descendants from both, and out of that an offspring would be born that can possess both abilities.
Gotcha.
Is that something that I think is tied into it? I think that's something that's created over time versus what a werewolf is, which is a human that can transform into a wolf.
I have always had a curiosity. They can only transform when it's a full moon, or they can transform whenever they please, or
that depends on where you hear it from, right?
Because
so you have individuals that write novels about this stuff, and they start talking about it from the perspective that a werewolf, once it reaches a certain level of maturity, it could transform at will, right? And there are movies that show that, right? But traditionally it's at the full moon, because you're cursed, and during the full moon you will transform. Gotcha. You have any questions there, or anyone online that we can call and shout out?
Yeah, right now, we're good.
So yeah, and that leads now to lycanthropy, right, or lycanthropism, right? There is this time period in the 70s, right, or the 60s, where we call it like the hippie revolution, right, where people were just going bananas on LSD, and this was that time of free love and that whole movement
during the Vietnam War.
Yeah. So
that era.
So LSD was a big thing. It was a drug that was commonly used, and people who participated in those uses ended up hallucinating and going through some of the effects that came from LSD, right? And they would say that they were transforming into werewolves and eventually hurting people in the process. And there's even been cases, right, where people have gone to jail due to werewolf-like behavior and attacking people.
Wow.
And they can, and their response is, "That wasn't me. I'm a werewolf." Right?
Wow.
So what makes this so interesting is that you can't really pinpoint. You can't really pinpoint what's creating that, outside of a drug or some ancient lore.
Could be they call it like a psychosis.
Yeah, it's something like that, kind of like altered states. People with what they used to call it multiple personality disorder.
Bipolar.
Not bipolar. Bipolar is different.
It's different.
That's more like like changing of moods, right? That
Okay.
you could be happy 1 second and
And
be.
then you can be
This is
sad.
more like not recognizing who you are, or you think you're one person now, and then later on you're something else.
Wow.
Um, there's also reported cases of people being raised by wolves and adapting wolf-like behaviors.
Isn't was like a story about a kid that was raised by wolf in one of those mythologies,
Yes,
like
there is some mythology
like a Greek
behind that.
god or something like that.
Yes, so there is some mythology around it.
Mm-hmm.
And not mythology. There is some stories behind it. That's real. This is documented, and there's actually video proof of a child found in her later years. She was raised by wolves, fed by wolves, still walking on all four limbs.
Wow.
Meaning on hands, and like almost as if she was a wolf, or a dog, right?
Like that movie, it was the Heritage. It was like a scary movie. It was like a little girl that was like she was raised in the woods, something like that.
Yeah, there's tons of movies like that that kind of depict that kind of behavior,
Mm-hmm.
right? All in all, I think that there's some psychological component to it, right? Yes, there's no denying that this historically has been present for everyone to know about. I don't think that people really look at the psychological aspects of it,
Gotcha.
right? This could be, back then, where before medicine became medicine, it was something called alchemy, right? What if what we're seeing in recorded history is just a depiction of somebody behaving
Mm-hmm.
that way, right? Um, so there's a lot of ways to interpret this. I'm gonna stick to the idea that there are these huge, giant, cool-looking monsters that can rip you to shreds
Wow.
at the stroke of a full moon.
Imagine if all those sightings of Bigfoot and Sasquatch and all that, maybe they're werewolf. They kind of fix the same appearance, hairy, big, you know.
Yep,
Could be.
it could be. I'm looking for some other information that I had, and for some reason it just disappeared off my. Let's take a look here, because I think there's something. There's something super important that I know I wanted to mention. So there is a recorded set of murders that are related
Werewolf?
to lycanthropism,
Wow.
and this is like a real case. So there's a lot of that going on, and I think that there's more to the story, right? I'm just looking here. I kind of covered a lot of that. So the only mythology, or the only culture that really didn't look at werewolves the same, was the Norse mythology.
The Norse mythology?
They looked at it as symbolically. They never got into the idea. They were actually fans of wolves, right? So they weren't necessarily pushing the werewolf agenda, but they kind of
Mm-hmm.
bought into that. Um, and then, of course, you have your classical antiquity stuff. This goes into ancient Greek folklore, where there's the Scythians and the Greeks settled in Scythia. The Nuri was a tribe of Scythia, where all transformed into wolves once a year,
Wow.
right? And this is ancient Greek mythology. And then, of course, you have Pausanias, right? It's related to the story of King Lycion, right? Of Arcadia.
Arcadia.
Yeah, Arcadia. This is all Greek, right? And Zeus turned them into a wolf as punishment for doing something to him, and would blast them with lightning bolts.
Wow.
I mean, that's powerful stuff. But I want to get away from the legend. from a historical standpoint. I think we kind of covered a lot of it. I think some of this is vague, right? Because there's not a lot of information. There's not a lot of information that pertains to it being very specific.
You're right.
Um,
I was trying to find something here.
like there's not one thing I can pinpoint that says, yeah, this is it. It's just all over the place, right?
Maybe they do it that way. That way, you know, you don't know much about the stuff. You know.
So let's talk about this, because now this is where it goes into skinwalkers, right? In the U.S. specifically, werewolf mythology is considered the same as us being a skinwalker. Now, we know that skinwalker originated from the Native American tribes, and there's a lot of Native American background supporting the skinwalker theory. Of course, you have the ranch. The most important thing here is to note about that, and this is to answer the person's question at the very beginning.
Oh yeah, Mr. Daniel Martinez.
Yeah, Daniel Martinez, is that Indians have animal spirits, right? Some are bears, some are foxes, some believe in the eagle. The wolf was one of the predominantly favored animals, right? And they represent something, right? Like, you know, the owl represents wisdom and foresight. The wolf was like knowledge and other pieces that pertain to that. Essentially, when skinwalkers came about, apparently these Native Americans created a pact with the spirit animal and was able to transform
Into
them, right? And you know, there's stories about skinwalkers all over the world where they transform into a specific animal, not necessarily a wolf, and in some cases they can transform into any animal.
Yeah.
Right. And it reminds me of the skinwalker story of this couple that brought the Skinwalker Ranch before its current owner, who uses it for study purposes.
Yeah.
Right. But the previous owner he was a cattle rancher, and he wanted to use the space for that. It ended up being that the first time they encountered it, they saw what appeared to be a big dog, but it was actually a wolf. Apparently they shot this wolf hundreds of times, not hundreds, I'm exaggerating here, a couple of times, and the wolf just walked away.
Didn't
budge at all. Now, after that kind of became the segue to what we know as Skinwalker Ranch, which is owned by a multimillionaire. He's, you know, documenting these cases inside of Skinwalker Ranch, testing it, because Skinwalker Ranch is not just a Skinwalker issue. Apparently, it's a paranormal hotbed.
Yeah.
And a UFO sighted location, right? I mean, this place is in the middle of nowhere.
It's
right?
like there's a place like that in Puerto Rico called La Laguna de Cartagena, like the Cartagena Lagoon, and it's very big on UFO sighting,
right?
Anything weird they have seen there.
So these places now are becoming more and more approached by wealthy people who want to do studies on the paranormal.
Sometimes I think it could be like a magnetic field, or like a portal.
It could be like an energy bed,
energy,
you know.
Yeah.
So to segue back into the Skinwalker piece, can the werewolf be part of that discussion? Absolutely, because skinwalkers transform, they shapeshift, right? There's not a lot of clarity led to it, but it kind of goes right into that idea. So I want to talk now about like werewolf weaknesses, right? Because in these movies, the only way these werewolves can die
with silver bullets,
right?
And it's not a Bud Light.
So that it's not a Bud
Coors
Light.
Coors Light. It's not a Coors Light.
La bala de plata, right? But there is something that we know and we call wolf's bane, which is a plant. I believe it's pronounced Aconitum napellus, right? It's called wolf's bane. I mean, I'm just gonna stick with wolfsbane.
Yeah.
But it's the common cure or weapon against the werewolves. It's not it's an actual plant. It's not mythological. It's a real plant.
But how they're gonna use it? I mean, you know.
Well, I would assume that you would, liquefy it and put it in some kind of liquid,
Maybe in an arrow,
or put it as a
something,
poison
knife,
or on a bullet.
on a bullet. Yeah.
So it's kind of like their weaknesses. Of course, you have silver bullets, but it's not just silver bullets. You can use silver blades and silver swords.
Yeah, silver
You
swords.
can decapitate a werewolf for silver and kill them. Not like the movies depict that if they die without that, they just get back together and stuff like that. Even though I find that pretty cool because what's the movie? Monster Squad. There's a scene where the werewolf literally explodes.
Which
into
which one
pieces.
is Monster Squad? That's the one that had Frankenstein,
Yeah, Frankenstein, Dracula, the mummy, the
Loch
creature of
Ness
the
Lagoon,
the creature of the black
the
lagoon.
Black Ness.
That'll be one long naked
Yeah.
person. But yeah, so there's different tools for the job. I think it kind of sucks, right?
You know, here in Florida, going a little bit, segue a little bit about this. You know that movie, The Black Lagoon?
Yeah.
There's a place here in Florida that I visit, and that's where they filmed that movie.
Oh.
It's what you might call it, one of those those places here that have the water like a
The swamp,
no, they have like a fresh water, like really good water.
like a creek, or
It's
Oh.
like a park. It's like
Oh.
a Florida park.
it's like a spring.
Like a spring. There you go.
Okay,
It's a
okay.
spring, and they have a boat that has a glass bottom, and they
You can see
show
everything
you.
underneath.
They even have the suit of the movie there. It's
Oh.
in, I think it's in Ocala.
In Ocala.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Very
Cool,
nice
cool.
place.
So yeah, these wolves, they're a mystery. They're just like they are in real life. They're elusive creatures. They hunt in packs, but they stay away just enough to keep an eye on you, and they move when they see a sign of weakness. Right? The myth is just the same. There's not a lot to go on outside of what we've looked at, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the research depicts. I wish that there was more to it, but I think that because of its inconsistency and being scattered, the only thing I will tell you though is if all of history has made mention of it, then there has to be some truth to it. You know, like the old saying,
there should be some truth of it.
like it's like, there's a sliver of truth in every story.
Mhm.
There has to be some truth to it because the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Bible, the Scottish, the Nordics, they all made mention of it in some capacity, and they're all consistent.
Yeah.
They're all consistent with the human transformation of a wolf. Now, it doesn't mean that they're all going to look the same. Some of them report the wolves as quadrupedal, meaning they're walking on all
Yeah.
four legs, and some of them bipedal,
Like the
humanoid.
ones in that movie. What was that movie?
Dog soldiers. That
That
one was good.
Twilight.
Yeah,
There were-
why we got to mention it?
Yeah. But I mean, that's the
You know,
for pedo
you
wolf. You know what I mean?
you was a team Jacob.
No, I was no team.
So yeah, all in all, I think it was a great research piece.
I prefer Underworld.
You prefer Underworld?
Yeah, 10 times.
I agree with you.
The last one didn't like it, but the first ones.
The
really
first three,
good. Yeah, right.
yeah, I thought they were great.
They were-
But I'll tell you one werewolf movie that nobody talks about:
Which one?
Stephen King's Silver Bullet.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, that's classic. That's with Corey Haim and the guy who plays Peter Dandridge in Fright Night.
And it's funny how they call him Silver Bullet, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the only thing can kill a wolf
Yeah, so
besides the plant.
Silver Bullet. What's the other one? You have Ginger Snaps. So that's a little more modern.
Mhm.
I like the older stuff, right? The Howling.
The Howling.
Oh my God.
Which one is that one with?
That I think when it comes to horror films, when it comes to werewolves, I think The Howling was the blueprint.
Isn't that the one with
That's a series, bro. It's like about six
Oh, okay.
movies deep. They had like different iterations of it. My favorite one is Your Sister's a Werewolf, which is I think it was part three. Part one was crazy, but when it comes to transformations, I think the best werewolf transformation has to be from American Werewolf in London,
Okay.
not in Paris,
In London.
Yeah, I thought that was classic transformation.
Talking about London, I got something to read here. It says the werewolf is a widespread concept in European folklore, existing in many variants which are related by a common development of Christian interpretation of underlying European folklore developed during the medieval period. From the early modern period, werewolf belief also spread to the New World with colonialism.
Mm.
Belief in werewolf developed in parallel to the belief in witches in the course of the late Middle Ages and the early modern period, like the witchcraft trials. As a whole, the trials of supposed werewolf emerged in what is now Switzerland, especially in the Valais and Vaud in the early 15th century, and spread throughout the European in the 16th century, speaking in the 17th century, and subsiding by the 18th century. The persecution of werewolf and the associated folklore is an integral part of the witch hunt phenomenon. Oh, wow. That's very interesting.
It sure is. It sure is. And then, of course, you have works of fiction, books.
Yeah.
You have The Beast of Gévaudan, right? Which is an old, it's about 18th century werewolf-like creatures getting shot by silver bullets. You have Dracula's Guest, which talks about Dracula inviting a guest to his house, and he just so happens to be the Wolfman, right? But not the Wolfman, but a werewolf, right? There's tons of books that kind of tap into this stuff. And of course, there's the one that nobody wants to talk about it because of the name, but I'll mention it. So, Nazi Germany used the werewolf as the mythical creature's name spelled in German in one of Hitler's headquarters, right? So
Wow.
they kind of believed in a lot of that mythical creature thing they had going on. So there's a lot of information. I mean, this stuff never. The only thing I will tell you is this, and I think the audience needs to know. If you look up Dracula, you're gonna find it that it's associated with Vlad Tepes, right?
Vlad
Or
the Impaler, right?
Yeah, the Tepes. He's the. I believe he was the king of Wallachia. Or I hope I'm not butchering the name, but Wallachia. And Bram Stoker kind of took that inspiration
Mm-hmm.
to create Dracula as we know it. You know, the one blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Want to suck your blood. That's the inspiration behind it.
Okay.
Now the real Dracula, right? That's a real. But when you talk about werewolves, right? It's different.
It's
Like
different.
there's no origin story that you can pitch to me that's
Yeah.
gonna stick. And that's what makes this so great. It's a mystery in and of itself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now the cool thing is you can pick your truth, right? You could say, "Hey, well, you know what? I'm from a Celtic background, and this is our truth." And some people might say, "Hey, you know what? I'm from, I'm just shooting out the dart here, but I got ancestors from ancient Sumer, and the Epic of Gilgamesh is the gospel." But then, even if you picked one, you kind of fall into the same trap,
Exactly.
right? So, that's all I got for werewolves, and I think it deserves a nice little howl.
Yeah.
I think it's a great story,
It is.
a great discussion piece.
It is.
Unfortunately, people are shy, and they will not call the number that we have listed, which was 904-803-7327.
I was counting on Kid Dan to give us a call, but
To ask questions or provide us with insight,
yeah,
right?
man.
So overall, what's the best wolf movie you've ever seen?
Wow. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of werewolf movies, but I think the one with Jack Nicholson, right? He has one.
Wolf.
Wolf.
Yes,
I think that one is good because it's kind of like I like movies. Believe it or not, I like fictional movies, but sometimes I like movies that I know there's a fiction, but they try to make it look real.
Right. That has some real dramatic sense.
Like an example, like the Batman movies with Chris Nolan. Chris Nolan.
Christopher Nolan.
Christopher
director.
Nolan, director. Yeah.
That's the Dark Knight series.
Yeah.
That's the one
like-
with Christian Bale.
Yeah, Christian Bale. Like the first one and the second one, they was kind of like depicting like a real
Man.
Batman. Like
Yeah.
if it was real, this is how it would look. You know what I mean?
Batman was just flooring the shit out of everybody.
Yeah, and it was like possible. You know, he's normal guy wearing a suit that's bulletproof vest,
Right.
and he got technology on his advantage. You know what I mean?
You know that the guy from Twilight also played Batman, right?
Yeah, but he sucks. Anyway, but that movie with Jack Nicholson, going back to the werewolf, I like it because it's kind of like real, you know what I mean? Like
it has a sense of realism to
exactly like if there was a real werewolf, it would be something like that. You know what
I
mean?
disagree. I like the monstrous, brolic bipedal wolf story. I'm gonna have to go with, damn, it's a toss up, but I'm gonna go with Howling, only because they had a lengthy series and it was creepy to watch, and especially when they did the whole Roman piece where they were like in Rome and in Europe. They really nailed the idea of lycanthropy and werewolfism
Gotcha.
and like the cult of werewolves, right? You got a message there?
I got Jacob Capture says, "Hola, I'm back," and Kid Dan Gaming says, "My bad, I'm driving." LOL. Well, you guys welcome to call. We're talking about werewolf. So if you guys wanna call and add something to the story, I'm in here.
So I got something cool.
Bring it on.
So the Teen Wolf, right? With Michael J. Fox.
That was one of my favorite. I forgot
Alright,
about
so that was one of the coolest
Yeah,
werewolf movies,
cool,
right?
yeah.
But let me tell you something. The series Teen Wolf.
I never watched the series.
Oh, you gotta watch it.
It's good.
So you know how it goes into this idea of packs. It does really well at explaining how wolf pack structures work,
Okay.
right? And they're all fighting for this alpha demon role, right? Because there's other werewolves and they're like in groups. Outside of that, I'm just trying to get the cast because I had an incident that I want to talk about, which I thought was pretty cool.
Bring it on. Oh, Jacob's saying, have you guys seen the movie The Great Wall? With Frank Walsh? So that's another one. That's the Great Wall.
No, I have not.
I have not. Let me see what it is.
So let me look this up. So
Yeah.
true story. Teen Wolf was one of my favorite shows that because it took the Michael J. Fox story and they gave it like a serious tone. So I'm at the Museum of Natural History with my daughter and my family. Right? So we're going out there, and my daughter decides to butt into this gentleman and look at this specific piece. So my daughter's young. She's and my daughter's very strong-willed, so she doesn't take no crap. So I'm like, Ivy, you gotta move. And I go to the gentleman and I apologize. And I say, look, I'm sorry, sir. And I froze. Because the Black Wolf in Teen Wolf, his name is Gideon Emery. He does the voiceover for Halo.
Okay.
Right? I ran into him. I'm like, oh my God, you're that guy from Teen Wolf. He's like, oh yeah, thanks a lot for supporting the show. It was so freaky, right? So I actually met a wolf.
Okay.
Even if it's in movie.
You
But yeah, so Gideon Emery, I actually got to meet him and shake his hand and say thank you for creating a good show.
Which one is?
That's this guy.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So he does the voiceover for some of the Halo games. So it's this guy here.
Gotcha.
He's a really cool guy, really nice guy, really great actor, super talented. But neither here or there. It's really about the wolf story. I met a wolf, but he just so happens to be an actor.
Hey, but at least you met one,
Yeah. So greatest for me, the best series regarding werewolves has to be Teen Wolf. It breaks down the structure really well.
I never saw the series. I thought it was gonna be like a little bit, I don't know why I had the impression it's gonna be like Twilight.
No, no,
It's
no,
not
no,
like
no.
that? It's
Actually, I mean, this floors the crap out of Twilight.
Oh, really?
The cast was really good. The story was really, really sharp.
Nice.
Um,
I have to watch it.
I was really sad that it ended as the way it did because it kind of left you wanting more.
Oh,
You know,
gotcha.
and it's the problem with good series. Either people need to move on, meaning the actors to move
Mhm.
on to greater things, and then let it go, and then the story just dies with it, um, or they just don't have funding and people, things fizzle out.
I hate when that happened to TV series.
Yeah,
Like the one The Witcher.
yeah.
That was a great series, but then
So-
they're changing the actor now.
But that's based on a game.
yeah, but the series was really good with Henry Cavill.
I will tell you, the game is better.
Is better.
Oh yeah, and I think Kid Dan can attest to that as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Kid Dan is driving. I don't know what's going on. People, listen, you cannot drive, and
no, but it's okay. You know what? Kid Dan gets a little howl.
There you go.
Thank you for the love and support, Kid Dan. So I think this concludes our discussion on werewolves. It's a very open-ended discussion because the history is open-ended. There is no true origin.
No true origin at all.
There's historical facts, but no one can without 100% certainty say that this is where it started. It's not like Dracula.
Like at least Dracula, we know where he came from. But that Vlad the Impaler, right?
You know what Dracula means?
Oh no, I mean, what it means.
So back in those periods,
Mhm.
you represented a clan.
Gotcha.
Right? So Dracula
What's the
is
clan?
son of the dragon clan.
Oh.
So he was the son of someone in that
the
dragon clan. That's what Dracula means.
Wow. So
And you know that he had a son.
Draculito,
No, Dracula. No, actually, his name is Alucard,
Alucard.
which is, if you put it in a mirror, it's
Oh,
Dracula.
yeah,
It's Dracula in
Alucard.
reverse.
Reverse.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Like, there's a lot of cool things with Dracula, and then at some point we'll talk about.
We should make one
vampires.
about Dracula.
That's gonna be. I think it's gonna be more interesting to people
Yeah.
because
It's
there's-
more known.
There's grassroots origins, but I'm a diehard wolf fan. I'm gonna stick to werewolves to the end, only because they're the unsung heroes of horror, right? They're like Venom. You ever see Marvel superheroes? Like, you got Spider-Man. Everybody loves Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I was a fan of Venom. I was a fan of the guy that could have just become good for a second and become
be
evil as
bad,
shit in
yeah.
5 minutes, right? So that was my thing.
Yeah, Venom is great.
So it's kind of like the anti-hero approach. That's what the werewolf represents. Like, I'm cool, I'll rock with you, but if you cross the line, I'm shredding you to pieces.
But it's funny because you don't know that we don't know the origin of the story, but they're in every civilization, in every story. There's some
Carvings,
Exactly.
paintings,
Exactly.
reliefs, pottery, you name it. The werewolf is. I think the werewolf is more historically visible
Exactly.
than Dracula is.
Exactly.
Because the only thing we could go back is to Wallachia, right? Which is Vlad Tepes,
Mm-hmm.
right? But beyond that, there isn't no Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there is no other Vlad. There's only one.
No.
In werewolf lore, this thing goes
Back.
far
Way
back as God knows. I mean, the Epic of Gilgamesh is way
Is
before
way-
before Vlad, right?
Before.
So it leads to question like, where is this coming from? It makes
Enkidu,
me
right?
want to look
Enkidu.
into. Yeah,
Enkidu.
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 So you have Enkidu, you have Nebuchadnezzar II.
Yeah. And that's in the Bible, you know.
So it's strange,
he was turned into a beast.
but that's what makes it good. Before we end this, that's what makes it great.
Mm-hmm.
That it's within that mystery of not knowing where it comes from.
Yeah.
It has been so profoundly pitched into everyone's mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's that allure. Like, man, what are you? You know what I mean?
Where you come from? you
And I
know.
think that's what makes it great. So yeah, I think it was a great discussion piece. I think for next week. So what should we do next week?
Wow.
I mean, not next week, the week after, because we do this every 2 weeks. It just will be on a Friday.
Yeah. Well, this Friday, I'm off.
Oh, so you want to do it next Friday?
Why not? Bring it on.
All right. So next Friday, we're gonna do it. So We got to pick a topic. Let's discuss this in front of the audience.
I don't know. I mean, but we had to. First of all, we had to. Let's shout out the IT department here and everybody behind cameras.
Yeah.
You know, they're always very, very helpful with us, and we really appreciate that, guys. You know.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
And you know, we had to discuss with you guys first before we try to do something.
So I'll tell you what. I think that the discussion.
What about
piece-
Dracula?
No. I don't want to touch that yet.
No. Okay.
I think we should pick a subject. And let's see. Jacob had something from New York.
Let me see.
Is he on?
I don't know. Jacob, are you on? Jacob, didn't you want us to touch something on, like a New York cryptid or something like that?
Let's let the audience decide.
Well, you guys can decide. I mean, give us a heads up. You know. When... Meanwhile, let me see. I'm trying to find something about Nebuchadnezzar. About when he was turned into a beast. Because he spent years turning.
You want to
into a
know
beast.
something?
Mhm.
I think this is a perfect time to talk about something we haven't spoken about yet that everybody talks about.
What?
Bigfoot.
Bigfoot?
We should talk about Bigfoot.
Yeah.
So next week, we're talking about the big man.
You see, this is the resemblance between Gilgamesh and Nebuchadnezzar. Like one of the Babylon's greatest ancient warrior kings. Same as Gilgamesh. You know?
Right.
And already secure renown himself during his father reign. So, but I want to find when he was turning to beast, and he was years acting like a beast, but he was like, the way they describe him, he looked like a beast. He was eating from the grass and everything, like a beast.
Yeah.
Let me see. Let me check the chat. Yes, he says yes, sir. So, what was the cryptid that you wanted to about New York? Which was it? You have any specific or? Bring it on.
Hold on 1 second, because I'm going to look through my list. You got Sasquatch.
Is it? This is not the same one as the.
The ugly merman. That's actually New York.
Wow.
And then you have the Kinderhook blob. These are all New York cryptids. I think this one I like, the Cardiff Giant.
The Cardiff Giant.
Yeah,
That's from New York.
that's New York.
Wow. There's always New York has a lot of story.
The creepiest one, which is the most recent, is the Montauk Monster, but that's not upstate.
Oh, yes, badass. Beast. Let me check this. Okay, it says Nebuchadnezzar lived like an animal for 7 years, unlikely any other king to live on earth. He rules over men and beasts, experiencing both the human and animal kingdom ways of life.
Okay.
Wow.
Check the chat. If not, we're gonna sign off.
Oh, he says there's one called the Beast of Sherman.
Yep, I have it here. So there
Yeah.
you have it. So voters,
There you go.
people in the chat, you choose it. We'll show it up and we'll make it a discussion piece for the next podcast this Friday at 8 p.m.
The Beast of Sherman.
The Beast of Sherman.
How you do
There you
that
have-
with the
The the beast of Sherman.
So there you have it, folks. Frank Walls and I want to say thank you so much for participating in this audio podcast session where we talked about the werewolf legend. He's actually pointing at the cameras, knowing that it's offline.
There's no camera.
There's no camera here, but yeah, we want to say thank you for participating. Please try to get in the habit of calling in. We have free merch that we're giving away just to join the call. Oh, there we go. We have someone from Milford, PA. Hello.
Hello?
Yes, Distorted Realities, J-Rock speaking.
Oh yeah, I'm watching the stream right now. I just wanted to say I like the content, man. I like what y'all doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. What's your name?
I'm David. Isaiah put me onto this.
All right. Awesome. David, I'm gonna save your number. We're gonna give you a Chupacabra T-shirt.
I appreciate that, man.
Awesome. We appreciate you, and thank you for tuning in. And just remember to tell your friends to like and subscribe.
Yeah.
And stay tuned as we continue to deliver more and more content.
And remember, if you ever had a paranormal activity or story, you always welcome to share it with us. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, I wish I did more on like Caribbean folklore because that's what I grew up with, and hearing stories about that from my grandpa and stuff like that.
Where you from?
I'm from Trinidad, so I hear hella stories like
Trinidad and
that.
Tobago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I had a friend named Trinidadian Ladian. That's what I used
Yeah,
to
they
call
got
him.
crazy stories.
All right, good. So now we know to look up Trinidad cryptids and folklore.
Yeah,
Cool.
that would be awesome.
So,
man.
would there's any cryptid from Trinidad that you familiar with, or?
I mean, I haven't heard a lot about that since my childhood, since hearing stories about that from like the old heads and stuff. But I mean, maybe if I remember, I could tune in and tell some stories.
Cool. Give me a second. I'm gonna see if there's any from Trinidad. You have Papa Boys, La Diablice, Mama de Lou.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah. You have the Silk Cotton Tree, and then you have Sokuyant.
Wow.
Yeah, I was telling Isaiah about that one.
There you go.
You see?
So that's good. So we have some material now to work with, and what we'll do is we'll probably air it for not for this weekend, but probably for the next one, or we'll make it a segment in our live stream on Sundays at 5.
Yeah. Sounds
I
good.
bet.
All
I'll
right.
definitely
So
tune in.
awesome. Thank you so much. We appreciate you getting on the call. Well, we'll call you after the show to make sure that we get your details and we can send you the shirt.
All right.
Thank you
Thanks.
for the support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye.
Awesome. We got
Nice.
a caller.
We got a caller.
We're getting
man.
less and less shy. That's what we
This
want.
is getting
Participation.
Cool.
All right. So with that being said, I think it's time for us to sign off.
Yep.
So it was a great story
Mm-hmm.
to research, a great theme. And I really appreciate spending the day with you chatting about this stuff, Frank. You're awesome.
No, you were awesome.
You know what?
Yeah.
We're awesome.
That's why I shout out the IT team, because believe it or not, even though we're starting, we have like 20 people working behind cameras to make this possible.
So
we have the best AI, IT and AI team, and I really appreciate what they do from the bottom of my heart, you know.
All right. So with that being said, J-Rock and Frank Walls is signing off. Thank you very much, and we'll talk next week, Friday.
Take care, guys. Thank you for the support.